Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of June 10th, 2023 and a date of marriage of 1984. She does not have listed energy types or contact types. She says, my 65-year-old husband has an affair partner who is 26 years younger, so 39, than himself, and he has established himself in a city apartment, which his affair partner stays in 1 week on and 1 week off, as she lives in another city with her 10-year-old son and her mother. So we've heard from her before. If he is now playing the role of the rescuer for this newly divorced woman, probably recovering emotionally and financially, meaning she's probably recovering emotionally and financially, yeah. And mentor, as they are in the same industry, as you've previously suggested, why would he enter liminality at any stage? Do you mean at any point? This seems to be the perfect life, albeit he has sacrificed his long-term marriage, financial security, the trust of his children, and long-term friends. So there's a little bit more, but I'm going to stop right there for a moment and point out the discongruency which you yourself just pointed out. This seems to be the perfect life, except for all these things. And that's the key right there, okay? So let's go on. He's posting his new relationship more openly on Facebook. Given that he's probably still in limerence, I'm still interested in what would prompt the MLC person to enter into this next stage liminality. Our daughter expects our first grandchild in February, but I don't imagine that this would be a prompt for self-reflection. No, unfortunately, it wouldn't. It could be a prompt for self-reflection if it came at the right time. So in a few more years, the grandchild that comes then, or if it were a first, perhaps, that could prompt it. But he has to be at the right place for the prompt to work. And he's not going to be. So what pushes a person into liminality? First thing, I'm not going to make you a guarantee, okay? So MLCers get stuck. They get stuck all the time, unfortunately. And what if his life with her is perfect? So what makes a perfect life? Well, she would have to be perfect. She would have to be a lovely lady, okay? And what I mean by that is no conflict, no jealousy, no toxicity. And he has just entered a relationship where there's also a young child. And this young child is just coming off of a divorce himself. And this young child doesn't get to see him, but he loses his mom half the time. And is that relationship now going to go further? Or is it going to stay, I get to be alone one week and together 1 week alone? Is that a permanent situation? Or is he going to push, or is she going to push for it to be more? And what happens when it pushes to be more? So there's that. There's the awakening. Now, the awakening is what pushes a person into a liminality. Now, you don't have to have an awakening. You could go in other ways. But they wake up. Maybe there's an incident. Maybe it's not an incident, but just enough things pile on. And they look back and they realize, WTF, what have I just done? And so let's consider an awakening as an event. And let's make it a horrible event. Or I'll give an analogy. Somebody is an alcoholic. They're a raging alcoholic. They go out to a bar. They get raging drunk, get in their car, and drive. They don't quite make it home because they hit another car. They kill the family with the little girl inside. The alcoholic himself is not hurt. They get out of their car and see what they've done. There's an awakening. They awake to finally acknowledge their problem. Finally admit it. Finally. But that does not mean they get on the wagon. That does not mean they go to AA and start working the program. It might mean they go to AA. But what often goes with the awakening is that sends them to it, to wanting and thinking about it. Thought, word, and deed. You think about it. And then you speak about it. but the action may not be there. But why in this instance? Because the act that was just committed was so horrendous, and the guilt and shame is so great. And yet I know in this situation there's going to be law enforcement in jail, but like, what the fuck have I just done? I can't face it. I can't do it. I can't do this anymore. And they go inward. They don't solve. They turtle in. And so instead of going to liminality, oftentimes it is an awakening that sends them to liminality. But before that, and this is also why it is not an exit from the tunnel, from the midlife crisis tunnel. They avoid, and it sends them to liminality where they have a full psychic breakdown. Because there's continuing avoidance within that. But they also don't go directly. Some might go, boom, crash into liminality. Many, they're going to continue to scrabble up. But it doesn't stop the alcoholism. It doesn't stop the midlife crisis. So an awakening can be a shocking event. But what if they don't have a shocking event? You can have, or a beautiful event like a baby. You can have a pile-on of events. You can have a realization that comes slowly. So here's what it is. And I can't tell you what his relationship with the alienator is like. So if he has an affair down, though, let me tell you what that in general is like. There is emotional blackmail. So if you're not familiar with emotional blackmail, don't just go look it up. You can go look it up in Google and you'll find information, or go get the book that it is based on. Emotional Blackmail, title of the book, by Susan Forward. Emotional blackmail works by FOG, F-O-G, fear, obligation, and guilt. So, for example, Chuck's alienator Mary, the first time he officially fully broke up with her, he actually moved out without telling her, and then I told him, you're going to break up with her in person. You need to go tell her you're going to be a man, and you're going to show respect, because if you don't respect one woman, you don't respect you disrespect all women. So he did that, and that night she went home, took a pregnancy test, and then told him she was pregnant a few days later. So, emotional blackmail, faking a pregnancy. The woman was 41, and a few months later had a full hysterectomy. She wasn't pregnant. Now, I have no evidence of that to this day. Pretty sure she wasn't pregnant. Now, there was no baby 9 months later. Only a few months, much less than 9 months was the hysterectomy. She came up with some story about, oh yeah, it got lost, but it kind of faded. Now that there was this sudden incident, just faded. She, I think it was only a few months later than that, after that, told him that if he didn't come back to her, he'd come back and forth a few times between then, that she had a problem on her brain this time. And this was before the hysterectomy. After the faded pregnancy, she had something wrong with her brain. It was water on the brain. She would die if she didn't get it fixed, and she wasn't going to get it fixed unless he came back to her. Emotional blackmail. So I call that threatening indirect suicide. She had often told him that it was his fault that her job was in jeopardy. It was his fault to his job to take care of her, because she sacrificed for him, because she was fired from the job where they were both coworkers. So all of this guilt, and then there's the fear, I will tell on you. You are duty-bound, obligation. You're duty-bound to rescue me. You're duty-bound to save me. You have a duty to me because I gave this up for you. And the guilt. I gave it up for you. You should feel so bad if you do this to me. You need to help me. I need rescuing. So I don't know what she's like if she's in a fair down. But if she's going to be doing anything like that, then that is going to weigh that relationship down. We don't know that this relationship is perfect. You're just saying the situation of, well, he's got 1 week off where he's alone and has freedom, and then he has 1 week with her. How could that not be so perfect? How could it be perfect? You can weigh that both ways. So I can't guarantee. What if she's a perfectly lovely woman, and she's just either ignorant about the situation she is in with him, a married man, maybe because of what he's told her, or because what he hasn't told her. That could be. Maybe she's interested in friends with benefits. Maybe it's just convenient for her. Maybe she's looking for a sugar daddy and just using him. I don't know. But if she is doing any of the things that are going to help create conflict, if she is jealous, then that is going to add to the toxicity. And it doesn't happen right away. So you've got the limerence. You said he's probably still in limerence. Given the timeline, yeah. But here's the thing. Emotional blackmail can be just as powerful as limerence, and limerence fades. Emotional blackmail can take over. So in my situation, his affair lasted about the time limerence lasts, but I really feel that, and maybe that means it was limerent for a lot of that, but I didn't feel like the limerence was strong after that first bit. I mean, she faked a pregnancy and then told him she'd kill herself, sorta. So that she started her emotional blackmail almost at the start of the relationship. And so I feel like it took over right away. And they were working in conjunction, but the limerence really did fade. And the emotional blackmail was the powerhouse in my husband's affair. And that's how I think of it. I know I don't have brain scans or blood tests to say that. But I want you to be aware of those two things. But emotional blackmail is a beautiful thing because it's toxic. It's horrible. It's holding somebody hostage. It's not keeping them there because you're a wonderful and lovely person in a positive relationship with grace. So that's why it will come to liminality. That's why the relationships are doomed. That's why they end. And there's no guarantee. No. My dad was the other man, and their relationship lasted for 29 years until he died. Okay? And they married. I wouldn't call it a great marriage, but I can't call it a bad marriage because it wasn't thriving, but it survived. They weren't going to be not together. I think they were maybe codependent, and it seemed like I felt limped along, and they were to be around them was like to be around the Bickersons. But I could tell that they weren't going to not be together. And so there's not a guarantee. Or you get these relationships, especially with the younger ones, that lasts 10 years, 15 years. And that sucks too. So I'm not trying to say that's the common. That's not the common. It is not common. Forget what it looks like from the outside to you. Affairs in general don't last. Affairs in general are doomed. Affairs in general are toxic and high conflict. And for you, if you're standing, it's kind of what you want. I mean, you don't want it to be this positive and lovely relationship, other than that he feels guilt about it. And you want him to feel guilt. You want him to have conscience. Okay? Yeah, he's probably trying to be the rescuer. And he probably sucks at it. And you said here, see, he has sacrificed his long-term marriage, so there's guilt, shame with that. He's lost his financial security. Forget guilt and shame. He doesn't have financial security. He's lost the trust of his children and his long-term, and he's lost his friends. The trust of his children, that is a really big thing, because it's not just the trust of his children, but he has lost them being in his life, possibly. I really hope not, but he has lost the relationship he had with them, the solid relationship that is a trusting relationship of mutual respect, that he can be the grandpa as the children come in. Because if your children do what many do, it's, yeah, Dad, sure, you can come, but she's not allowed. And right now, that would be easy for him to respect because she's only there half the time. But being told that your partner isn't allowed at your family gatherings, what? That can make somebody pretty incensed. I love it when they get incensed. But that's a boundary. You left our mom for that person. Now, if somebody went through a midlife crisis, went through it, got through it, never returned and reconciled with their spouse, and ended the relationship that was an affair, and maybe you as the spouse don't want to take them back anyway, and they moved on to another relationship, but this is not an affair, and it may be legitimate, that's different. Even if it's somebody 26 years younger, that's different. But this one, he left as a betrayal. And there are consequences to that. And I don't just mean consequences that other people apply. They're internal consequences. If the core person that he is a decent person, there are internal consequences. And what I want you to do is have faith that he will suffer. And I don't mean that in a mean way, suffer the consequences, because life is suffering because we learn through it. And so when I say I want a person to suffer, I'm not wishing ill on a person. I'm wishing consequences for the purpose of growth and learning so that we can come through better. Okay? I want you to have faith. It's faith. But understand there's no guarantee. There's no promise. And even if this relationship doesn't last, I can't guarantee you what you're going to want or what he's going to want after that. Okay? Okay. Let me know if you have more questions. Keep coming. And everyone else, keep them coming. I am right now out of questions. Okay? And this is posted on Wednesday, and I send more questions. So I will see everybody in the next question. Hopefully Friday if you send me some.